So it was announced today that the Seattle Seahawks signed Johnathan Abrams off the waiver wire, claimed him, I guess I should say, from the Green Bay Packers. And he was a guy that had come over from the Las Vegas Raiders this past offseason to the Packers, where he had an underwhelming career there as a first-round pick. Now, the Raiders front office has certainly been trying nearly the moment Gruden left to start kind of offloading all of his guys out of there, and this was certainly kind of one of those guys. He was a guy looked at when he came out as a guy who was viewed as sort of a Cam Chancellor type safety. Didn't have the size of Cam Chancellor at about 6 foot, and maybe had a little more speed than a guy like Cam, but a big, heavy hitter, a very good tackler. He runs a 4.45 coming out of the combine. You can see as a safety, if you're going to run a 4.45 and then have the split he did, which was a 1.56 split, which was pretty quick in addition to that, that's going to open some eyes as far as teams looking at you going, okay, we've got maybe a little bit of a guy here who can hit and he's fast, which isn't always the combination we can get. But the issue comes into play in that the coverage skills just aren't there with him. So you look through his PFF scores, for instance, through the years here since he's come into the league, and it does appear like there's a fairly decent ability to tackle. I looked through a little bit of research on this, and there's been some question with some of the Raiders fan base about his sometimes whiff. You know, we've seen this with the big hitters at times where they want to come in there and lay the kill shot, and they'll just whiff right on through and just completely miss. And so that is a little bit of an aspect of things. But I would offer that he's probably going to be a better tackler than what you get out of a guy like maybe, let's say, Josh Jones, if, God forbid, Ryan Neal were to go down and you needed to install somebody else who was maybe a little bit more of an improvement, especially if the opposition is hammering you in the running game, attacking that very aspect of your team. So this is a way to maybe give us a little bit of a safety valve for some of the run game worries as far as that goes, and that he'll give you that. But you see here in 2019, 38.7 as far as his PFF score. That is horrible. He comes back in 2020, not much better in that respect of things, 36.8. Does have some tackles, a couple interceptions, but he is certainly, targeted 30 times, gives up 21 completions. Teams go after him as far as his coverage stuff goes. Then you've got here in actually 2021, he has his best year. This is the last year here with the Raiders. 79 tackles, 1 interception. He was targeted 68 times, allowed 54 completions, which still isn't great, but it's a little bit better, I guess, than maybe what they had seen prior from him. He got a 56.9 grade, which, as I said, 65 is going to be about average, so that's still a little bit below average, but certainly better than what you were getting from him in the 30s over the prior couple of years, which then does draw us towards this season now here with the Packers. 38 tackles. He's had 34 targets, allowed 26 completions, and he's at a 49.5 rating. So he has split himself between those first 2 years and the last year in his play on the field this year. And I guess you would say that it is underwhelming nonetheless. I believe, though, that this signing is completely about trying to have a little bit of a backup plan if, God forbid, if Ryan Neal can't get back out on the field quick enough, or if Josh Jones does continue to struggle in tackling. Coach Carroll does not want his defenses to stop the run. Even in those prior years where we've had some points where we've been historically bad through a good run of games, it's usually been in giving up air yardage or yardage in total. It's not in the consistency in stopping the run. That is the no-go place for Coach Carroll and his defenses, and he's going to want to try to take steps to stop that because he can understand, as we've seen very clearly over the past couple of weeks, that when you have a team that realizes they can hammer you and it's just a matter of wearing you down and just staying committed to it, and even as they're staying committed to it, there's yards to be gained, they're not going to go away from that. They'll be perfectly happy to just beat you up in that respect of things. And Carroll wants to force teams to become one-dimensional, but not running the ball one-dimensional. He wants you passing the ball one-dimensionally speaking. And this might be a step towards getting the Seahawks into that direction of things. Again, if the safety position struggles to tackle, if Ryan Neal isn't there, who has played great. So that's my thought process on Abrams. I do think this is a little bit of a brighter spot than you normally would see for a guy that you're just pulling off the streets essentially at this time of year, because you've got a little bit of a weakness there for the position. And it's not an indictment of anybody in the front office that we do, because of the fact you're paying your two safeties as much money as you are through this offseason. And you brought Ryan Neal back into play. And you already had Marquise Blair on the roster at the time coming into this year. You thought you would reinforce the ranks enough on that stuff happens sometimes. So all things being considered, the options that are available out there on the open market to try and do something about it, it is at least movement. The kid does still at least have some potential. And I'll give you this, at the very least, he gives you a hitter on the football field. He gives you a guy that can maybe instill a little bit of intimidation in that respect of things, something that this defense could definitely use.